Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. Welcome to Tuesday afternoon, Facebook Live. Welcome everyone. It's my privilege and pleasure to be here with you on the last day of May, year of our Lord 2022. Tomorrow we move into June, full swing into summer. Good to be here with you. It is near 100 degrees or in the 90s in beautiful Stockton, California. We have beautiful summers here where it is very warm with very low humidity in the beautiful San Joaquin Valley. So if you're just coming on here, welcome. We will have a packed call today. It's a little after 1 o'clock Pacific. Scott Lucas has joined us. Scott, good to see you this afternoon. Cassie, good to see you this afternoon. If either one of you would like the flyer, Cassie or Scott, if you'd like the flyer on Millionaire Blueprint, send me a message. Stacey Berkland, good to see you this afternoon. Avery, good to see you. Charles Howell, good to see you. I'm going to wait another minute or so and then move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. Sandra, good to see you this afternoon. Little history on this Facebook Live. It originally started off as a conference call back in 1998, and it was originally a women's empowerment workshop, and I moved it from 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I eventually moved it to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time and rebranded the call as the More Heart Than Talent Mindset Call. For 18 years, that was a call at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Many of you have listened to either the recordings or actually some of the live versions back in the day. 3 years ago, I moved it to a Facebook Live in 2019 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific. And here we are today, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 Eastern. Topic for today's Facebook Live is the belief factor. Belief in the world of spirituality, transformation, metaphysics, recovery, sobriety, and especially consciousness. Belief would mean sense of certainty. And when you are certain, then you know. And the more that you are in the know, the K-N-O-W, not O, but the more you know, the less you are in doubt. If you're in doubt, you'll procrastinate, get ready, pontificate, hesitate, levitate, and avoid changing. Changing is a key skill that very few people ever master. Now, every one of you that I've seen on today's Facebook Live, I have coached. Charles, Jared, Sandra, Stacy, Scott, Cassie, and anyone else that's joining and watching, I've coached a lot of you. I've watched many of you be in that state of transformation, be in that process of letting go. And it is not a perfect equation, but there is skills required to be able to develop the reflex of letting go. To be able to change your belief is to let go of the older ones that you hold on to, specifically the ones that you feel not good enough. On July 15th and 16th, I'm going to launch my first event in 2.5 years of speaking called Millionaire Blueprint. And it is not Breakthroughs to Success. It is not the Protege Writer Speakers Workshop. It is a specific event designed to facilitate letting go. I'm going to teach people the mechanism of letting go. I'll cover a lot of the brain functions that create brain fog and also create the hypervigilant fight or flight state that's a reflex that so many people live in. I'm also going to cover what happens in the physiology of the body, especially the neck, the back, and the lumbar when you're holding on to repressed pain, suppressed pain, and then trauma, bonds, and panic patterns. And when you're in these feelings, you will continue to worry all the time, or worry a large percent of the time, and avoid building a business. Now, the contradiction is that many people can have a job and perform in the job, but they have anxiety outside of that familiar zone. And they have challenges being able to operate in a relaxed body. And that's specifically what I'm going to be covering in my 2-day event is the reflex of letting go. There's a specific reflex of letting go. And I'm not able to facilitate that on a small screen here, but in a larger audience over a 2-day period, I'm going to facilitate what it means to let go. Now, not just let go and let God. That's one component of it. But it's the ability to master your emotions so that you are not the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. This will be beyond what you would receive in a 12-step program, which is a great fundamental foundation. It's actually one of the best available in the world. It's that 12-step principle that allows so many people to change their life. But I'm going to take people from being more of a dry drunk, where you're sober, but you're still not producing the results you're capable of. And there is a reason. So I'm looking for a specific client who wants to receive that type of content in the middle of 2022, so that the second half of that year and that 2023, here are the terms: production, results, and solution. I coach a man named Alex. I coached him today. Alex owns 6 businesses. Alex is 34 years old and a multi-millionaire. Now, the difference between Alex and many people is he does not have a college degree, but Alex also understands business because he's ran many of them. He runs 6 businesses at one time, and his business empire creates multiple 6 figures a month. Now, that is not all profit. That is the gross of his business. He understands his margins, he understands his employees, and he understands what it requires to be and stay in business. Now, this was not an overnight process for him. He's been a business owner since he was a late teenager, and he has lived in different areas of the world, mastering his emotions so he can be and stay in the flow of a business. And if you don't have clearly defined goals, if you don't live in a sense of certainty, if you don't have the reflexes to be conscious, then you will struggle in a business. You will struggle in your life because your body will continue to relapse. Now, that doesn't mean you can't perform admirably in a job, and that you can have a good job, you can perform in a job, you can make 6 figures, you can have assets. But if you want to really scale consciousness and you want to scale your life, then there's a specific set of reflexes that you master so that you're not in fight or flight. And if you're not in that space of letting go, then you will stay in disbelief. Now, disbelief, not belief, is connected to anxiety, fear, and doubt. The main anxieties that will affect so many people, let's look at anger itself. So anger has different shapes and forms. There's anger, hate, resentment, disappointment, frustration. So that's the anger family. And that's a higher level of vibration because you can actually produce in anger. And then the bottom of that scale is grief and apathy. So the difference in those energies is the anger energies transmute at around 160 to 180 cycles per second, while grief and apathy drops the body down to 25 cycles a second, a very, very low vibration. And if you grew up with a mother who was bipolar, a mother who was in bed a lot, or a father who was in bed a lot, or you grew up with parents who had emotional challenges, and then it's your responsibility to take care of them, or it's your responsibility to be the perfect child. Or if you have parents who are angry themselves, or violent, or you're adopted, or you were brought into this family, or you're a foster child, or you have a father that is not your father that enters the picture, and he becomes your stepfather, your stepmother, and you're singled out versus the other ones. Or if these 2 parents then have a child and you're not the child of those 2 parents, there can be conflict that happens to you. And this, I've been coaching for 24 years. It is so prevalent. So many people become traumatized as children, don't really understand it as grown-ups, and then continue to live in denial and tell themselves they had a good childhood, a great childhood, and they don't really understand what happened to them while they're in multiple amounts of debt, procrastinating and avoiding, multiple failed relationships, average results in life, just getting by. And then one day they become clean and sober. One day they want to change their life. If you're not sure, if you can't let go of this man or woman that you're connected to, if you're not sure if you can succeed in this business, then you're in doubt. That is disbelief. So belief is a sense of certainty, and it doesn't have to be 100%, but it requires you to be in the high 90%. 50-50 doesn't cut it. 60-40 doesn't cut it. 70-30 doesn't cut it. 80-20 brings you up to the breakthrough factor, and at that point, you're starting to step above doubt and you move into a place called courage. So for you to be and stay sober one day at a time over the next 30 days, so you can have your first 30-day chip, for you to be emotionally sober where you have back-to-back days of not criticizing yourself, it requires a belief that you can master those emotions today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but right here and right now. I want to take the time to say hello to Dave Bradbury. Dave was my client way back in the day in 2001 and 2. Ray Tamayo has joined us. I saw David Harris, Inga's joined us, and Colleen Sable-Olitsky, who was my client for 5 years. She is an exceptional human being. Her and her husband are multi-preneurs, dentistry and direct sales, multiple 6-figure income earners, 7-figure income earners. I mean, there's a couple, a husband and wife, that in unison at the same time are very effective. Susan Dampier is on today's Facebook Live. She's another exceptional business owner who's able to multitask and have multi-skills and create multiple streams of income. Now, for you to be able to be that man and that woman, that requires an emotional discipline, the belief that you're capable of mastering those emotions. But if you get into, oh, I'm not sure, and then your communication style is broken. Now, here's what broken communication is. It's kinda, guess, sorta, probably, if I had to say, I don't know. And I coached a man today. I listened to him. He said, I guess at least 20 times in an hour, and filled with guesses and kindas. And that means that is disbelief. It is unconscious communication. Very few people understand how their language leads their body. So what you speak is how your body is going to follow. And if you're speaking avoidance, you're speaking doubt, well, that's what will happen. You will be on the sideline getting ready to get ready. And in all fairness to anyone who enters the personal development, self-improvement, recovery, sobriety world, or the metaphysical world of transformation, they have no idea what is required of them. And so there's really not a handbook or a rule book. You can go to Barnes & Noble, you can go online on Amazon, and you can order 1,000 books that will be all the how-do-Is. But that still doesn't break down for you what you do neurologically in your body 1 minute, 1 hour at a time. And if you have challenges being self-directed with no self-esteem, you will have challenges breaking through the breakthrough factor. This book right here will give you insight. Now, this is one of the better books that I've ever owned, Transcending Levels of Consciousness. This is a handbook. I'll be covering this type of content at my event, Millionaire Blueprint. There is a reflex that you master. It's the reflex of letting go. And I am going to actually physically explain it. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to explain what a panic pattern and what trauma bonds are. I'm going to show what happens in the brain with a series of PowerPoints so you can virtually understand brain fog. And you're not crazy. And when you're overwhelmed and you live overwhelmed, you're experiencing acute brain fog. And this is going to come from the trauma bonds and the feelings of trauma and not being good enough that we as a collective consciousness hold on to over a long lifetime. Then factor how much trauma-based mind control there is, how much shaming and guilting there is in the world, and the effect that it has on you standing in line at the pharmacies of the world, or standing in line at the fast food restaurants of the world, or standing in line waiting to get a drink at a bar, and when you know you shouldn't be in there, or any multitude of situations that give you that instant gratification, that cardio cocktail, that relief that the ego seeks from being overwhelmed. And if someone said to me yesterday, what do you do when you let go? Well, you let go. Well, what do I fill it up with? You don't fill it up with anything. There's letting go does not leave a void. Letting go creates an allow space. And in letting go, it gives you more access to consciousness. Consciousness cannot be accessed in doubt. Consciousness is accessed in belief. And that consciousness is the web of consciousness of the world where all the energy is. It's where all the content is. It's where when you know, then you start to download. It comes to you easily and effortlessly. It doesn't just come from reading a book. It comes from knowing, and especially an acute state of belief, a higher level of belief called inner knowing. And in inner knowing, there's a connection between the limbic brain, and there's a connection between the limbic brain and the gut, and that's intuit. That's where intuition is. And when you're in fight or flight and you're living that hypervigilance, you are unequivocally cut off from the source that you access this. You're not able to be like here, you're like this. And so when you're not in belief, you're very contained. You're very shut down. You're very boxed in. And this is what creates depression. This is what creates doubt. It's what creates the emotion of apathy, uncertainty. And this is what so many people live in, is this overwhelmed state of anxiety. Now, if you grew up in a family like that, that doesn't mean that you are like that. And it's not in the gene pool. It's not the DNA. It's the events that shape the feelings. And the more that you understand that letting go is a skill and you begin to practice it, but you cannot possibly accomplish letting go by being in your head. And I have this question asked to me literally at least 20 to 50 times a day. How do I? And I'm very patient. I cover this. Letting go is not a how do I state of consciousness. It's an I am state. Now, there are how-tos, but they have to be practiced in a repetition and experience so that you're not angry, so that you're not pissed off, so that you're not overwhelmed and you're not unorganized and undisciplined. And what most people, it's not that they just relapse, they live in these states of feelings over and over and over. And then medication, food, alcohol, codependency, debting, a multitude of situations will keep people in that hyper-vigilant state of overwhelm. I'm living proof that anyone can let go. I mean, I was at rock bottom at 31. I've been through many challenges as a business owner, but through perseverance, through commitment, through changing my belief, sobriety, and then higher levels of recovery, and then understanding David Hawkins' content and many other books I've read, studied, content I've listened to, events, the traveling I've done that took me to multiple places around the world, the 1,000 audiences that I've spoken in front of, a multitude of events that have changed my beliefs. And this is what is required of anyone, is that you can't change a belief in the energy that you were living in it before. It requires a different emotional mindset. It requires the skill of letting go. So if you are living with an addict and you're angry at that addict, you can't possibly let go. You can still live with an addict, be around an addict, but it's going to be your responsibility to change the boundaries, to change the communication, not be in conflict, not let other people around you disappoint you, not create expectations that are not realistic. So you're responsible for your action. You're not responsible for the result out there. So that's up to God and the other person. So if you ask someone forgiveness and they don't forgive you, you've done your part. If they don't accept it, that's what you learn to let go of. That's called an amend. If you are starting to create amends to people and other situations that you have created your own challenges in, as you ask for forgiveness, that's your role. That's what you do. That's who you're being. But that doesn't mean the other people are going to recognize that. And the same situation shows up. When you're a leader and you're delivering content to people and you're mentoring teammates, or you have employees and you're giving them the input and you're giving them the context, well, that doesn't mean they're going to follow through on it. That doesn't mean that they're going to create a result of it. And your responsibility is to do your part and let the rest go. And in that state of knowing, you begin to know that not everyone's going to make it. You know that not everyone's going to follow through. You begin to know that the success is based on a principle called the law of the few. And very few people will ever let go of their dialogue with money that keeps them broke. Very few people will ever let go of the dialogue with money that keeps them in debt. Very few people will ever break that trauma bond that keeps them just barely struggling and getting by. It takes a very committed man and woman who lives in a state of belief, believing that they're good enough, believing that they're capable. The reason that so many people die with their music inside them is they tiptoe quietly through life in the greatest pain, the pain of regret, and they continue to regret. I've seen so many people that I met in 2002, 2000, 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and they're still in the game, but they're not changing. They're still doing the same situation over and over, carrying the same weight, carrying the same debt, in the same traumatic relationships, and they're reading the books, they're listening to the content, but that's one component, but the belief has to change. And the first belief that requires you to change, the fundamental is that you are good enough. And if you are not good enough, everything else is academic. It doesn't even matter. If you're not good enough, if you're not lovable, it doesn't matter what book you read, what seminar you attend, what rally you go to. You might win the trip, but that doesn't mean that you're going to let go. You're going to be your responsibility to understand what letting go means. In context, letting go is an ability. It's a skill to understand, to be aware, and to know that there's a mind-body connection. It's going to be your responsibility to understand that your mother is a narcissist. Your father is passive-aggressive. It's your responsibility to understand this. It's your responsibility to understand that that relationship you're in is not healthy. And if you stay in the seduction of it, and you continue to talk yourself into it, and tell yourself, well, it's not that bad. I'm going to leave when it's perfect. Or if you have a boss or an employer, and you're just hanging on to it by your fingernails because you're not sure if you can find another job that you can barely get by on. This is exactly what I'm talking about. These situations, these circumstances, the people continue to seduce themselves into holding on to while they're trying. And that means tomorrow is really yesterday. They're trying to get to a destination over here while the belief they're in won't allow them to. Your belief is that you have to be willing to quit a job. It's going to be your responsibility. You have to walk away from a relationship. You're going to have to perhaps move from your city. It's going to require you to do whatever it requires you to do and be for you to let go. You might have to go to a 12-step meeting like every day for the next 5 years for you to grasp it. If you're really committed and you're in a state of belief, you'll do whatever is required. I watch people 7 days a week create excuses for themselves. And then they ask me how I did it. And well, I'll tell you, I don't have the same excuses that most people do in sobriety. I had excuses as an addict. I was a pathological liar. Those filled with excuses. A serial cheater, a thug, a drug dealer, a drug user, an alcoholic, a pill popper, a junkie. I've been all those. A chronic debtor. I have fucking done everything. I've been a thief. I've stolen from employers. And this was all part of steps one when in step one you admit where you are. And then in step 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 is when you step into the whole purpose of making amends. And as the guilt and shame begins to lift, the energy goes with it. The energy begins to change, it begins to shift, and this is what begins to happen. This is transcending levels of consciousness. I have coached 17,000 plus clients, 24 years, 14, 15-hour days. Most people don't understand even what that means. 14, 15-hour days, they go, oh my God, is all you do is work? No, I don't. I own a business. And as a business owner, I learned to do what that business requires because that business provides my livelihood. And if you ever interview real entrepreneurs and people who really own businesses, they will tell you that a business is more than a 40-hour week. Sometimes but the business is, when you love what you do, when you're inspired by what you do, it ceases to be work and it's definitely not a job. So the word job would never show up in my communication. I'm an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. I'm the CEO of a California corporation that I have owned for 24 years. That's the distinction. I have a payroll. I have employees. I pay quarterly taxes. I do my own accounting. I hand my accounting to an accountant, but it goes through me first. I know where every dime, penny, dollar, $10 bill, $20 bill, 100,000 and million goes. I understand tax law. I understand accounting. I understand attorneys. I understand legal systems. I understand liabilities, assets. I mean, these are situations, and I grew up in a town that was this big and no one mentored me. It is called repetition and experience, baptism by production, and learning how to let go. I have had several businesses that I did not succeed in, but I've also had a few businesses that I did succeed in, and that's where I really learned the lessons of free enterprise. I have studied with the greats. I have shared the stages with Jim Rohn, Mark Victor Hansen, Dr. Joe Dispenza, John Assaraf, Judith Orloff, and a whole host of quantum physics, quantum healers. I have met some of the most exceptional people you can possibly imagine, and I came from a little town like this of 7,500. There were 132 people in my high school, I believe, when I graduated, a very, very small high school. It's not the bloodlines, it's not the gene pool, it's not the DNA, it's not the college, it's not Wharton Business School, it's not the PhD, that's a public high school diploma. That doesn't count. An advanced college degree doesn't mean anything when it comes to free enterprise. What is important is your belief, your sense of certainty. All the accolades and all the rewards have nothing to do with your belief, because your belief will either keep you in the business or in life, or it will take you out of it. And this is why, see, if you're avoiding and you're procrastinating, that's a direct reflection of your belief. And if you don't believe you're good enough, if you don't believe that you're capable, then you'll relapse. If you don't make it to the meeting tonight because you're not sure if you can go the whole day without drinking, well, you're fucked before you start. And unfortunately, that's how most people operate. If you're JoJo the Indian Circus boy and girl, and you plan to prospect this afternoon and you don't get around to it, and if you don't have customers and clients in your business, then what you have is a hobby. And that is what so many people have. They think they have a business, but what they really have is a hobby. And it's just a way to seduce themselves into perpetuating their avoidance and procrastination, or running up large amounts of debt in a business called non-profit. You have a business for profit. And if you're not closing sales, attracting clients, gathering customers, offering service and value, then you have a hobby. And unfortunately, that is the way that many people operate in free enterprise. If you're on today's Facebook Live and you would like to add on your existing coaching, feel free to reach out to me. If you'd like to rehire me, you're a former client, feel free to do that. If you're an existing client or a former client and you would like to attend Millionaire Blueprint in July 15th and 16th, that will be the first time that I will speak live in 2.5 years. And I'm not guaranteeing I'm hosting another event in December. People are saying, well, I'll come to your next one. Well, I'm not posting a next one. I want to see what the first one's like. I'll commit when I'm ready to commit, but I'm committed to July 15th and 16th. And if you want to attend an event where I facilitate the mechanism of letting go along with at least 4 other speakers, I would be honored to share those 2 days with you. There's a sign-up page on my Golden Mastermind Seminars website, jeffreycombs.com. Have a great afternoon, everyone. I will be back here at 9 p.m. Pacific. That would be 12 a.m. on Wednesday. Have a great evening, everyone.